Hey guys, Nate the Film Nerd here, doing a different type of video today. Today, I'm going to be doing a video that is an extension of the last video I did for this channel, which was my review of James Gunn's Superman movie. And in that video, I specifically talk about a lot of the negative reviews that I heard about this movie that came off as disingenuous and nitpicky and just kind of misrepresents what this movie is. And I thought this would be kind of an interesting video to do to point out the common criticisms that this movie has been getting, and me just kind of doing a rebuttal of those criticisms and why I feel like, they don't feel like criticisms for me. Obviously, this is just an opinion-based video. Anyone's entitled to whatever opinion they want on this movie. But, I'm a big fan of film criticism. I look at it as kind of an art form, really. And I think this movie is a really unique example of a film that's been unfairly targeted. A big demographic that's been doing this is the Snyder Bros. I mentioned that in my video on my review of this movie. But I basically wrote down 6 specific points. 6 common criticisms that I heard about this movie that I've pretty much heard from every negative review that I've seen about James Gunn's Superman movie. And I'm just going to be doing a rebuttal against them and why I feel like, they're either unfair or they don't accurately represent the movie. And so with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. So criticism number 1, and I heard this from pretty much every negative review. The film is not an origin story.
We would have liked a little bit, I guess it would be performative or serviceable backstory. Performative. We all know it. But just do it.
My rebuttal to this is pretty simple. How many more origin stories of Superman do you need? Matt Reeves' The Batman and Spider-Man Homecoming, just to name a few, are 2 recent superhero movies that rebooted their iconic characters, and they also chose not to retell the same origin story because Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man, those 3 characters in particular, are so well known in pop culture that even if you've never read a comic book of any of those characters, I think everybody knows that Superman crash landed on Earth from his exploding planet Krypton, Batman's parents were killed in front of him, and Spider-Man accidentally contributed to the death of his uncle. I don't know how many more times we need to see that in a movie, how many more times we need to go over that. Pretty much everybody, whether you're a superhero fan or not, knows about those stories in particular. And I don't think we need to see them again because what else is there to do with that? Just show it again for the millionth time. And with Superman, the James Gunn version in particular, it opens up with a title crawl. And in the title crawl, it specifically mentions Superman origin story. So it's there. The information's there. I don't think we need to see another version of it, or at least not anytime soon. Criticism number 2, the pacing is too fast. Personally, while I was watching the movie, I didn't feel the movie was any more fast-paced than pretty much any other superhero movie or summer blockbuster movie. I think this movie knows when to slow down, and there are several moments where the movie does slow down and bring up some good dramatic beats as well as some good character moments. After the big action sequence that opens up this movie, we get a 12-minute long dialogue scene between Clark and Lois. It's an interview where Lois is interviewing Superman. That scene is there to establish where their relationship is at this time, as well as to establish some plot elements that are happening in the movie, and to let the movie breathe a little bit. And it's a good dramatic, slow moment in the movie, and it's 12 minutes long. It's a good, lengthy scene. And we also get another scene later on in the movie between Lois and Clark, where Clark / Superman is at a very low point right now, and him and Lois have a very romantic and beautiful moment, and that's also a good scene. And we also get another scene that slows down between Clark and his dad, telling him how proud of him he is, and showing us, the audience, why Superman is the way that he is, and a big part of that is because of his parents. So there are numerous moments throughout this movie where the movie does slow down and give us some great character and dramatic moments. And then, like any other superhero / action summer blockbuster movie, there's a lot of action in this movie, and it's very exciting, at least it is in my opinion. So I heard a lot of complaints about this movie's way too fast paced. It should have slowed down. It does slow down. At several key points in the movie, it does in fact slow down. If some people wanted more slower, intimate moments, okay, that's fine. I can understand that. But personally, this movie doesn't feel any more fast-paced than, most summer superhero movies do. So this next criticism really annoyed me. No serious moments. So James Gunn has been picked on a lot recently for always putting his particular brand of humor in his movies. They always feel appropriate to me. I don't have a problem with it. I think James Gunn is funny, and he has a lot of funny moments in the Guardians movies, a lot of funny moments in the Suicide Squad movie, and a lot of funny moments in the Superman movie. Humor is incredibly subjective, so if there are people out there that don't find his particular brand of humor funny, that's fine, but saying that the movie is just one big joke and there's no serious moments is objectively untrue. In fact, just, the last point I made about how the movie slows down and builds up some character and dramatic moments shows you that there are several scenes throughout this movie that do take themselves seriously. And there's one particular scene that is very dark and is not undercut with the joke or is seen as, a light moment. It's the scene where Lex executes somebody in front of Superman. It's a very dark and kind of shocking scene within the movie. It's to show how ruthless Lex Luthor is as a villain and how Superman cares so much about innocent human lives and he wants to do everything in his power to protect that. And the amount of reviews I heard about, this movie's just one big joke, there's no serious moments, James Gunn can't control himself or whatever, and he doesn't care about the characters. It's just like, once again, that falls very much under the disingenuous type of reviewing that I can't stand. If you're going to be critical about a movie, you need to be transparent and you need to be honest and you need to showcase that in whatever film you're criticizing. I try to do that, and I feel like that's the fair thing to do. And within this movie, saying that it's just one big joke and there's no serious moments, just patently untrue, objectively incorrect, false. And that one really is kind of annoying. The fourth major criticism I heard about this movie was the convoluted plot. While I will admit there are a lot of moving pieces all revolved around Lex Luthor's plan getting Superman, when you watch the movie, it all makes sense. And when you look back at the movie, it's really not that complicated. Lex Luthor, famous arch nemesis of Superman, is doing everything he can to stop, kill, in prison, just basically get Superman out of the picture so he can be the main focus. It's all very envy driven. And he does this through a couple of different means. He does this with a pocket universe that he imprisons Superman in. He does this with his own genetically modified metahumans that he created, such as the Engineer and Ultraman, which we later find out is a clone of Superman. And he also does this with a war between the fictional countries Baravia and Jarnhemper, which he uses as a way to lure Superman into this international conflict in order to gain support from the government to basically get Superman any way he sees fit. And that's basically all the moving pieces in Lex Luthor's plan that makes up the majority of the plot of this movie. All the other moments in the film are filled up with character moments between Superman and Lois, and we also get some good comedic and fun side character moments with Krypto and the Justice Gang. Each one of those characters get their own little moment to shine. So yeah, that's basically the movie in a nutshell. It's pretty self-contained, it's incredibly focused, and it all wraps up very nicely at the end of the movie. So I don't find this movie any more convoluted than any other superhero movie, really. The fifth main criticism that I heard about this movie is that it's too colorful. I think this one really comes down to a lot of Snyder Bros and them being used to the distinct and depressing looking color palette of Zack Snyder's movies, very dark and gray and almost apocalyptic looking. And look, that's certainly a stylistic direction that, fits in certain movies, even some superhero movies. But this is a Superman movie, and this is a completely different take on Superman, at least in comparison to Zack Snyder's version of Superman, which I think is not a very good version of Superman. James Gunn clearly wanted this movie to have a color palette not that different from a comic book. And this movie very much feels like a comic book in terms of its colorful and vibrant visuals, and it was really refreshing to see a superhero movie, specifically a DC superhero movie, embrace the fun, colorful palette of a comic book, and you see that in a live action movie. And I thought this movie looked gorgeous. It was very bold, the colors, and I liked that, and a lot of people like that. This really boils down to taste and aesthetic. If you don't like the look of this movie, you think it's too bright or cartoony looking, all right, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But I think this movie is meant to look that colorful because James Gunn wants it to look like a comic book movie. And God forbid we have a Superman movie have the same type of brilliant colors as that of many great Superman comics. So yeah, that's just one of those criticisms that doesn't, I don't have a problem with it. I personally really love the colors in this movie. And the sixth, and by far the most annoying criticism that I heard about the Superman movie is that Superman is too weak. One of the videos that I watched of a negative review of the Superman movie, there was a comment in there that was the perfect comment that really sums up my feeling about this. Superman is too weak, in quotes, beats Ultraman and Engineer in a 1v2, true, escapes the orbit of a black hole with his freeze breath, true, carries a fucking skyscraper to save one person, true, mows down Lex's entire Raptor army in 10 seconds, also true. So Superman is not weak in this movie. He has to overcome really big, challenging obstacles like every fucking superhero movie that's ever been made. This criticism in particular really irks me because they'll leave out information and just be like, oh, Superman just gets beat up and it's way too much and he looks like a wimp in this movie. Okay, why does he get beat up? Why is he struggling so much in this movie? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because he's fighting a clone of himself, which is the big twist. We find out that Ultraman is actually a clone that Lex Luthor created of Superman and is as equally powerful as Superman is. And Lex Luthor is controlling these specific movements of Ultraman and is always one step ahead of Superman while he's doing this. And it's all Superman doing all of this stuff, fighting against Ultraman, fighting against the Engineer, fighting against the Raptor army. Like, he's overcoming these huge obstacles. And by the way, he ends up kicking all of their asses in the third act of this movie, just like every superhero movie ever created. So this criticism is one that I feel comfortable saying is kind of bullshit, really. Superman is incredibly strong and powerful. We know this. This is one of the criticisms we hear about Superman, is that he's so powerful, he's so invulnerable, with the exception of Kryptonite, that he becomes a boring character. So James Gunn specifically goes out of his way to show that this Superman, although incredibly powerful, is more vulnerable, and he's dealing with these huge challenges, and he ends up overcoming them in the end by being a super awesome badass. And I don't know how many of these people have read Superman comics or watched the Superman animated series or the Justice League animated series, but it's pretty common to see Superman getting beat up in comic books, in television shows, and in this movie. So it's very much in line with the rest of Superman's stories in other media. So that criticism, I'm sorry, it's not really going to fly. Not with me. At the end of the day, if people don't like this movie because they just prefer the, I'll say very nicely, the very unique and very different take on Superman that Zack Snyder did with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, that's perfectly fine. If that's the Superman you prefer, by all means, keep going back to those movies, rewatch them as much as you want. But I and a lot of other Superman fans out there are very happy to have a Superman that feels more in line with how we see the character, how we identify and relate to the character, and the way we've seen him in his comic books and his animated television series. And I think this is by far the most comic book accurate version of Superman, with the exception of Christopher Reeve, who's also very comic book accurate and is still, I think, in many ways the best Superman. But what I love about this movie is we get all of those great elements and all the great, brilliant visuals and action sequences that kind of represent at least modern Superman comics that we see in this movie. And James Gunn finds that tone really, really well with this film. And so anyway, this is like I said, this is a follow-up I did to my previous Superman movie. These are just some of the main criticisms that I saw about James Gunn's Superman movie that I felt like I could kind of rebuke in my own way. But once again, this is just my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. So yeah. That's just kind of, this is just kind of that follow-up I wanted to do. But let me know what you guys think about my views or those criticisms. Feel free to mention your opinions in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching.